curve or a subtle swelling or a slight inclination. These various deviations from the straight and the horizontal and the perpendicular are known as optical refinements.
Viewed from the gateway of the Propylaea, the Parthenon presents the image of a flawless structure. But not one of the visible lines on the building is straight. Ictinius employed these optical illusions so the building would not appear distorted when viewed from ground level. To stop the long sides of the building appearing to sag, Ictinius made them rise up in the middle. The center is 11 centimeters higher than the ends. At the base, the deviation of the pure horizontal can be clearly seen.
We know that the architects of the Parthenon tried in a rather dramatic way to refine the optical illusions, the golden section, the idea of what we see within the frame, if you can think of it that way, almost the rectangle that our eyes see more in focus here than perhaps to the sides, is something that as you look at the facade of the Parthenon straight on, there would be some distortion. So they tried to rearrange it in both the shaft of the column and the tilt, if you will, of the external columns, something that would correct that distortion as our eyes are seeing those a little less well than the ones in the center.
The sides of the massive columns not only taper towards the top, but also swell outwards 1/3 of the way up. This deliberate distortion counteracts the thinning effect of perspective over the column's great height. Without it, the columns would appear to narrow unattractively at the center. The degree of precision needed to produce such subtlety entirely by hand is almost impossible to grasp. Nor are the columns perfectly perpendicular. They all slope imperceptibly inwards. If the facade were extended upwards 4,800 meters, its columns would eventually meet. The side columns are inclined even further, meeting at 2,400 meters. The corner columns have an extra refinement. They're fractionally wider, the extra width compensating for the slimming effect of being silhouetted against the sky.
The optical refinements enliven the building. They create a tension between what we expect to see, perfectly straight lines, perfectly straight horizontals, and what we do see, swellings, curves. And this friction, this tension between our expectation and what we see adds visual interest. It adds intrigue. It makes the temple seem more alive and more appealing to our eye.
The completed Parthenon is a timeless testament to the genius of Ictinius and Callicrates' unique vision. Perfection through deliberate imperfection. Yet it was the Erechtheion, not the Parthenon, that was the ultimate focus of the Panathenaean procession. The temple honored the city's mythological past and the diversity of different gods central to Greek religion. It is the spiritual home for the cult of Erechtheus, the god-king who Athena had raised as her own child, centuries before the Golden Age. Built up from the ancient foundations of earlier temples, the Erechtheion was a unique place where the city's mortal history and divinity came together.
looks at the Erechtheum, it looks like 3 buildings to me. And for that, I love it, because we are so criticized today when we see a modern object, and sometimes clients or cities or governments think that that object is perfect and never change it. Well, architecture has never worked that way. Architecture is elastic, it's plastic. It has a sense of growing and changing over time, and that's what one looks at in terms of the Erechtheum, how marvelous it is. And you can't imagine it as a pure object. You have its pure object adjacent to it in the Parthenon.
The unorthodox floor plan accommodates distinct areas of worship for different deities. The upper portion was dedicated to Athena, while the lower levels had altars dedicated to Zeus, the king of the gods, and to Poseidon, god of the sea. Its majestic main entrance protected a stone believed to have been struck by Poseidon's trident. On religious high days, the temple was the center of activity, as thousands made offerings to the gods that dominated their lives, and the blood from sacrifices would have run freely from its many altars across the marble floors. Its most sacred shrine housed the statue of Athena Polias, the guardian of the city. The ceremonial peplos was draped over this sacred statue as the concluding act of the Panathenaean festival.
An Athena who was represented in the form of an olive wood statue that was so old that not even the Athenians themselves knew where it had come from, and said that it had fallen down from heaven.
The most renowned feature of the building is the group of caryatids supporting the roof of the temple's southern porch. Roman art historian Vitruvius recorded that they represent enslaved priestesses from the island of Caryae, who had sided with the Persians during their war with Greece. Frozen in stone and facing in submission towards the Parthenon, the caryatids are a permanent reminder to future generations to be loyal to Athena and Athens. The sculptures are credited to Alcamenes, but in their exquisite detail and powerful storytelling is the guiding hand of Phidias, his tutor and undisputed genius of Greek sculpture. And it is with Phidias' own work that the sculptural significance of the Acropolis is fully realized. Behind the massive bronze doors of the Parthenon's inner sanctum, he created Athens' priceless treasure, the most expensive sculpture ever created. Today, the Parthenon dominates the ruins of the Acropolis. Its appearance as a classic Greek temple belies its real purpose. Behind massive bronze doors that protected its inner sanctum was the wealth of Athens. The colossal statue of Athena created by Phidias dominated the treasure room. "11 meters high, her flesh was carved of ivory, her armor of pure gold."
We're told in our sources that the amount of gold that was used for the statue alone amounted to 40 or 44 talents of gold. A talent is an ancient Athenian unit of measure, equivalent more or less to 57, 58 pounds.
At today's gold prices, Athena's armor would be worth £8 million. Guarded by Athena and a permanent garrison of troops, the rest of Athens' treasure was stored here, often donated to the city in the form of votive offerings to the goddess. The giant statue has now been lost to history, along with the wealth that funded Pericles' grand ambition.